Okay, guys, welcome to the latest Metapolator review. I'm here with Peter and Lasse, and we're going to be talking about progress that we made in the last sort of week. I'm going to sync up on discussing the development process, talk about the work in the API that Lasse has been doing, and dive into the specimen user interface, which is kind of the next big thing in front of us based on that API. So the first thing is that we're now about kind of 30% through the time that Dream has available to work on this in the run-up to the bigger graphics meeting. And we're doing, I guess, roughly about 10% a week there. So that's kind of 7 weeks at that same kind of pace. And we talked about the community doing a few in-person sprints where during a visit, whilst we're in Nuremberg, later in Berlin, and also Simon's planning to visit Peter in Berlin as well to sprint on the visual design. So maybe it'll go a bit faster than that. But yeah, it looks like we're going to have a kind of good steady pace up to the graphics meeting. Peter and I are definitely going to be there. And, I think everyone else is still there.
So about Simon, is he just about to finish his fonts?
Let me check. So he and I have been trying to keep a very close watch on the progress of the project. And so with his so as of 7 days ago, then the Latin was completely finished in terms of getting the work done for the original master, and then the Devanagari was also about maybe 2/3 done a week ago. So I'm sure he's made a lot of progress since then. He's posted some PDF specimens of things. He's doing.
Oops.
How things have gone in the last week, but yeah, things are going pretty good. So I need to catch up with Simon about that. But he's very close.
Yeah, because I knew that around the 3rd of March, I mean, a week ago I said, oh, just one more week. Of course, he hasn't booked or hasn't told me any dates that he's coming to Berlin. But yeah, now it's really getting, concrete. Is it going to be next week? I cannot have Simon and Jeroen at the same time because I will spend a lot of time with each, and it would be it's simply about the organization of who's going to be here when, and certainly for Simon, I feel also the sooner the better, simply because there's going to be some design needed of the visuals. It's going to take a week or two anyway, and then it still needs to be produced also by Jeroen. So that's why I'm like, is he really finished? It was supposed to be just about right now. He is actually online that I saw.
Yeah, I just pinged him, so maybe he'll be able to join the group.
Yeah, or simply give information. That will be enough.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, I'm with the number of how much we burning our development budget. I'm really happy we're not going through fast to it. For the amount of time we spent on it, we're still doing great stuff. And yeah, there's simply, as you can see, lined up for me again some critical tasks, some redesign of this or rejig of that that I have to put in time in, and then from next week spending days with collaborators on really sprinting forward in that regard.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think it's going very well. So with the kind of online collaboration process, so the GitHub issue tracker has tags, it has milestones, and it has tasks. With these kind of checkboxes within issues. And so yeah, those things are kind of typical project management ways of dealing with things to be done. And the reason that I think this is especially good is that the actual code commits can be directly tied to those issues. And so you kind of see this, in the issues where Drew was saying, like, I've done this for the specimen, or I've done this for the master list, or I've done this for the help menu. So it's very tidy in that it ties the implementation work to the issues.
What I wanted us to really say face to face and not through writing it in online, which it's a very narrow band of communication, writing things in mailing lists or on platforms to each other or in emails to each other. But I really want to express that, well, first of all, I really appreciate what you, Dave, do for the project and keeping it rolling. I know that without that it would be complete chaos here. There would be simply no project management. Second of all, I appreciate more since one day or two why it is needed that we keep track of things, that, like you said, tying commits to actual issues, but also for you to keep track of what Jeroen has done and his timesheet, etc., that is simply necessary. I also think that for by and large, we've been doing things almost exemplary compared to other projects. We're working in the right way. We divided the responsibilities. The attitudes are really positive. And mostly, and in the bug tracker, it was also really good, just a collaboration instead of the thing becoming a world of its own, basically. I think all that's come up in the last week and that Jeroen and I are a bit complaining about is just, one factor out of many got a little bit out of hand is the bug tracker itself became a world of its own at some point, where there were always 11 things for me to answer waiting for me at any given of the day. And also Jeroen was spending more and more time in it. So I think it's just a slight tweak of how much we need to have sometimes a little bit more patience with evaluating things and then saying it all, it still isn't right. And I, from my side, need to do a couple of things that I know now I can steer more what you see in checkboxes by myself. I always checking off things that are sort of done and then making new checkboxes of smaller items that are still to be done. So I think you see also natural progress, that the number of issues goes up, but also the number that have been done go up.
Yeah.
So you get a refinement of the status. And in this way, everybody can work with it. I think it's just very important to see that just by Jeroen and I tuning into each other, we got this. We have this way of naturally progressing through the tasks. Maybe sometimes it needs. I mean, actually, from your side, we said we concentrate on this now. I do not steer Jeroen what he currently works on in a way, and this is an important factor to me. for me, everything is the quality of our results, how much it is together instead of just a bunch of loose software parts. And this togetherness I constantly work on, and it's a qualitative thing that always, and this is fundamental, sits a bit awkward with the quantitative thing of how much have we done in checkboxes. That's just an inherent, you see, quantitative, qualitative doesn't fit so right together. So it's a different view, and I know I need to be constantly on the ball to make sure it happens. Simply in the last week, it got a bit too quantitative and away from that. I'm feeling like, yeah, for me it's great the progress, but it's not the whole point. But I think we can just steer it a bit back, or actually I can take action to put the factors that matter back into the points that you then see at the top of the issue. What we've also been doing really well, and I'm really happy with that, is we're looking at bigger issues instead of taking it apart, the tiniest thing, the tiniest task in one issue. I know that's very much like agile and things like that, but it's actually much better that we just say we look at the whole instances list instead of each sub-item that is in there. So there's a lot of things to be really happy about. There's a lot of things to really appreciate, especially about our attitude and how we're working on it, and how we what we are putting into this with real commitment. It's just the fine-tuning of the last bit that, and it needed a correction because.
I think that's all good. I think that the demo page, kind of minimum version, reduction of the elements of design is great, and being able to slice that up into prioritized GitHub issues is it's very practical because we can tie it to the code as it's happening. And the duplication that was piling up last week, I totally agree that that's not what we want. And so I think that we're all on the same page with the way that things are being prioritized, and I think that with all of that kind of set up, there's now plenty of stuff to be that's in the system set up to be done over the next probably two or 3 weeks. I would guess my kind of sense of the stuff that's in that 0.2.0 milestone is going to probably take another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think there's also, my view is always on the whole package of work that is available to be done, and the UI demo, the MVP, where everything is just good enough to release to the public and it's useful, and the technology works, which is a huge thing, of course. And so I think also, the view of everything still, for me, it's always the whole package, and I know it can be done, and I also know that when push comes to shove and time runs out, that I'm prepared to still make some further cuts in the thing, but it's still together. It will just get more and more, it will hurt here and there a little bit more everywhere, but we got something that's still a useful font making or font mangling thing. If you want to call.
So and I think this is a good chance to move on to the issue about talking about the specimen. So I've been kind of suggesting that I think that it would be kind of of medium priority to be able to edit the text in the specimen in some kind of regular rich text editing way, where you can select a cursor position in the text between 2 characters, and you can add or remove characters, and that's extremely kind of natural, and that glyphs is really now the very much the most widely used font editor. Font Forge has a similar feature, And Glyphs has this, on-canvas cursor style, whereas FontForge uses an off-canvas input box. And I think that the ideal thing is to have the text, string manipulation done directly on canvas, and having it off canvas is kind of acceptable. Like that you could have it in many different ways, having it off canvas. But this is something which the prototyper guys posted on Twitter and a little screencast, that they got this working, and it was their most commonly requested user request feature. So that kind of reinforces my view about how important this is, to me and to users.
I would like to, how to say, I don't want to go too long into why, how we're working in another system, how we are working with the combination of fonts, and how I really have some goals about providing specimens that are combination complete, as in we guarantee that if your interest is in 3 glyphs, that you see all the combination of those 3 glyphs. We just generate it for you, etc. What really is helpful to take it away from this, should we do it like the others or do we have our own world? For me to really be able to think clearly about it is to hear from you, not just that you would appreciate to type things in there, but give me examples, or give me, even better if you can think of it, exactly the reasons why you want at that moment to type in there.
Yeah,
I can really take it from there.
So the Impolari testing page has lots and lots of examples of preset testing texts. But the way that designers work is unpredictable, personal, and if you're adjusting one of the glyphs, then you might want to see it next to a few other glyphs, and it's somewhat dependent on the design what those could be, and it's also just a spur of the moment, spontaneous kind of decision. So it's not possible to predict, to pre-generate all the different views that designers want to have, and it's great to have the functionality that we already have, where we have some presets, and being able to include line breaks in them, is good, and being able to change the different kind of loops or patterns, the way in which we fill different masters or instances in these preset texts. But those things are, I feel, automations of a process which has to be manual to begin with. That those things are kind of augmenting the ability that like you say, when you're dealing with these things at scale, then you can't be writing everything out every time. That's just not. It would be too slow, too crazy. But being able to edit these things and being able to come up with custom stuff, I think that is quite important. And I'm totally willing to postpone that if it's a technical challenge, and we want to try and highlight the fact that we are trying to do this, that you have done, and we are trying to do this kind of anticipatory design work to make using the tool really smooth. So I think that sticking with what we have, improving presets is good, and then maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, maybe when we're like 60-70% of the way there, then we can look at what can we do for the last 40-30% of the time that's going to have the biggest impact. And hopefully at that point, then we won't just be looking at me for kind of user feedback that's speculative, but we'll actually be able to ask real type designers who are our real user market.
Mm. Yeah, but a great input. There's a couple of things going on that I'm seeing that are there's a couple of things missing in just the design of the specimen right now that I'm now very aware of, just because of your feedback and from the previous week already. And it really sets like, yeah, with what we can do at this moment, even then it just doesn't work right that it becomes satisfactory enough that you would even put up with, or type designers in general would be like, well, it's a pity I cannot put the cursor really directly there, but man, it's 90% there actually, but the last thing would be putting the cursor and changing that. I see the factor that when you see this big block of text, then why can't you just click a cursor and put the glyph of interest in between? I think it then also is fully possible that we just use that as an amendment of the string that actually drives the generating system. It's not even that big. I think, and this is a big thing, we need to hook into an online pangram service to really drive how many different words we can actually generate and find. I also think I need to redesign how the filter works, and I'm much closer now to the actually needs that are expressed with it, and I will do some work on it. I do believe, because I know that you're looking at text, but actually you're now looking at a grid of SVG icons at the end. That is how it's implemented at the moment by. And that makes it much more difficult to again use it simply as a text edit field in itself as a text editor. I always knew that was going to be a big switch back, but so it still may not be possible to do that big switch within with the time that we have. So however, sorry, Lasse.
You would usually, sorry, just 1 second. You would usually, in such a case, use a hidden text error that captures the input events for you. So big deal. So it feels like entering text into that thing, but actually you're using another element, and then you can use the input events that you can read from that hidden text error to change your string. I think it should be.
Yeah, that's how well-known web-based word processor works.
So yes, it can be done, but I think we also know that it's quite a bit of custom handling that needs to be built. No,
I agree. And so as I said, I said this on the issue. I think that I'm just kind of highlighting this as something which I think is a high priority in the next round, basically. The first round is just to get the it seems to me that the most immediate thing for Jeroen to work on is that Marcel has done the API, and we need to start seeing those SVGs, and it's a big chunk, and I believe he's going to be working on that the next sort of maybe 4, 5, 6 days. And as soon as he has something, then we'll be able to kind of get a sense of how big a job this is actually going to be. It looks like from the API, in the demo that Marcel did, that it's going to be quite straightforward. So I'm kind of optimistic about this. And then
I think we're both a bit nervous about that it really happens. That is like I said, it's the acid test of putting it together. And I'm honestly saying I would also feel better once we are hooked up to the engine, and we can see the see also the fallout from that, because issues will come up about how well it responds, how well it displays. Jeroen needs to build this, and I don't know how far he is. This feedback mechanism of I'm updating the glyphs now, this red underlining that then disappears. This is super important for making the tool workable, and I hope he put in the basics with the selection underlining. Because if we have that, we are really, giant leap further to having a working software. So yes, I really look forward to that. And all the other UI tasks, and simply wait, because I know there's weeks to do them, and then also. And Jeroen will be working with me. We will sit down for the small stuff. That's all great. That's that I got fully confidence in.
Yeah. So Lars, could you tell us a bit more about the API work that you do?
I don't know what you actually know in terms of since the last Hangout. So what I did is I made a API where we can change everything that kind of affects the display of glyphs, or the data that is used to generate that display of glyphs in on the CPS side. So what we can't do is change the mom side, which is like changing the strokes, the paths, adding points to the strokes, stuff like that. Because then we would build a font editor, which we are not doing right now. Mm-hmm. My first approach to the API was changing all the CPS stuff, and there it is kind of a limited API in terms of it teaches some things like this parameter dig, which was mentioned in the screen there. It treats that like a dictionary, but that is actually more like a dictionary and the list, which is okay, I think, for our use case, because we can just say, okay, change the parameter with this name, and it will happen. So that's okay. One problem is that I did not have the time to test it all, because I need to move on to something else right now. So this will come up, but the demo did some like this basic stuff, and so I think it's not totally wrong. What we can't see from this outline of the API is what happened. Also, is like a lot of wiring up the. There are many caches in the CPS, and they need to be cleared when some values change. So there's stuff like dependency tracking, and when a dependency of a value changes, it kind of propagates through all the cached values and invalidates them, stuff like that. So this was quite the bigger task than just to provide those APIs. But on that side, I'm pretty sure it works.
Last on this topic, can I it's already also requested. I think it would be very.
Yeah.
I think it would be very good, or it would be actually super useful for the front end, for the UI, to know the moment that you are invalidating caches.
The moment when you set a value.
Yeah, but
that moment it's invalidated.
Well, but you told me sometimes it can go really fast because the caches can be maintained, and sometimes there's a complete breakdown of the tree, and then or invalidation of the tree, and it needs to be rebuilt, and it's a lot longer. That's how I understand.
But that's not dependent on when you change it or so. That's dependent on what part you change. So if you change something that is like a key dependency of everything. Everything needs to be invalidated. And actually, I think the invalidation is not so expensive, but the rebuilding of the cache. But I think it's not so well. I did some tweaks here and there, and it's now even on my slower computer not so bad. Actually, I don't know how it looks for you guys on your computers, the interpolation demo.
Yeah, but Lasse, let me explain why I asked that, because in the front end we're gonna sort of maintain a figure of the average speeds in glyphs per second that we can regenerate, so we can estimate when so many glyphs are visible that need to be updated, if it's going to take more or less than a second. Just estimate, no hard science, but estimate is good enough. This is all, of course, based.
Like, why don't you just measure it and display that time? I mean.
Yeah, we measure it. We will keep a running score, but we know also that when we trigger something, and I don't think we can really know for sure in the front end what these somethings are. If we trigger the invalidation, then you know about it, and you can send us a signal, an event or whatever, or some kind of whatever it's called. You can send a signal to the front end and saying, I invalidate now, there's going to be a rebuild. This is going to take a little bit longer. Now you know. And we in the front end deal with it with saying, okay,
yeah. What?
It's just informing us. It's nothing else.
So when you change a value and it is currently cached because you just rendered a glyph or something, and you change a value that affects that glyph, then the cache is going to be invalidated.
But it's about the high-up thing, the whole thing invalidation. You talked about it's like mostly it's just like render the glyphs. Yeah, it's changed, needs to be re-rendered. But sometimes you do something that's so fundamental that all the caches that make it faster and more.
So how it works is actually you know what you are setting. I mean, there's no magic way to set any parameters via the API. So the interface is going to know where it is changing stuff, so you can know that it's. You have to know something about the structure that you changed. There's no magic way to do this. So I won't invalidate something that you don't set.
No.
Actually. So I don't know. So I don't. Maybe this is just too abstract at the moment. I think I can't solve it right now for you because the spec is not clear enough. Maybe we have to wait until we made it.
I think actually my understanding is that the cache isn't so fine-grained as Peter is kind of suggesting. That either it's cached and it's going to load really fast because it's cached, or it isn't cached and then it has to be calculated. And there isn't going to be. I don't think that there's going to be that much variation in the time to do the calculation.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because Lasse explained to me like everything's pretty fast. If you need the glyph recalculated, it's pretty fast because things are cached. Certain things are that build up the glyph are cached, but you can have situations where the fundament of everything is invalidated because I'm still hoping we not even touch those parameters that really invalidate the whole structure in the. And then,
I don't think so. Most of those very deep buried things you won't touch them right now because it's not your focus. It's it's like you won't probably touch how the outline is generated from the center line, so that everything needs to be re-rendered. So probably for one font you're going to change the width of the stroke or so, then you will have to regenerate like the whole master, the outlines of the whole master, but not the center line, because the center line can so. But well, it's kind of, that's actually interesting. What we did never talk about, what parameters you're going to use and stuff like that, because that's going to be some knowledge that needs to be built into the front end. So you need to,
that's coming. I'm today designing the parameter panel. I have this list of 8 parameters that I see that we can do maximum, basically.
Yeah, so we will have to build those parameters into the fonts, and we will have to build CPS for that stuff and whatever. So that's, I think that's the bigger task compared to rendering some SVGs of some font that's kind of solved. It's not built in, but we can do it, but we don't know how to treat the parameter stuff. If you ask me, that's a dark spot.
Let me send you something as a link, and I really say immediately, this part of the 8 parameters is really a proposal, and because it's all about what we can do in practice and make sense for font designers, etc. I got the link.
Yeah, so you went.
Actually, you can have a look at it.
Yeah. I will look at it, but I can ask a question in between. There's the plan that someone drops in a font and then a lot of magic happens, and I'm really eager to see how well this will perform, because
okay, part of course people importing their own fonts is that we give them some recipe how they have to prepare it in another application. That's, the pair points, what is with the O, what I remember as certain very critical things. If they would do, what does it mean that fonts that are UFOs are compatible to begin with, in compatible point pairs. It is part of the demo to have a web page saying this is how you prepare your font. You check it through. At the moment, we cannot do this automatically. It has to be done manually. Of course, Dave is also right to say we ship with one of our own fonts that immediately, is preloaded, so people can play from the beginning. But
and even that font doesn't support all those parameters you have on the list, and actually, which is kind of, it's possible to build this thing right now without the UI since don't know, quarter year or so, 3 months, and this list is existing. So nobody did it. So I don't want to be the one person responsible why this list of parameters does not work in the end. And I think this is going to be a big part to make all this stuff happen and see how the CPS stuff performs and so on. But I have the feeling that I'm the only person who ever thought about how to write CPS for stuff like that, and so for me this is clearly the bottleneck to just make this magic happen and to just make it work, and in the end to make a usable tool out of it. What you say is going to be there. So
now let's
so this is really like the critical part of it. I'm totally sure that we can build SVG rendering into the app. I'm pretty sure that we can use at least Project Zero to show something in the app, maybe not all those parameters, or we can maybe add more parameters and they will work maybe good or maybe so-so or whatever, stuff like that. But some totally new font just prepared from some recipe, I don't know if it's so easy. For me, the experience was that I had to change like some details for every glyph to make it work. It just did not just work.
I don't expect that, and I know the recipe itself is the bottleneck, but it is also part of the system at this moment. It is handwork by font designer to begin with, preparation, and it's a pity it has to be done, but there's no way we can automate this kind of stuff. But we just have to get over that hurdle. I also said about the list of parameters there, it's completely a proposal. It is not that I am like, well, that's going to work. We're going to be really practical about this. And if at the end we still end up with only width and weight, okay, then we really tried, but okay, it's back to those two parameters that was clear from the beginning, because you do it for the Metapolator, that it can be done. Everything else is just extra. Oh.
Which, as we know, does not work out of the box. Simon and I did describe this in the last call already, because stuff like the joining points of strokes, they don't work just with skeleton transformations when you change the width of the strokes. So, for example, I had a very wide, very bold font to work with, and when I made the stroke like lighter, there was a gap appearing. It's just there. So, and then at that point you need to add some description where those points should be, like at the edge of the stroke, and this is exactly the kind of details I'm talking about.
See what you mean. But at the end, it always comes back to the preparation beforehand.
No, actually, maybe if we can like invent some super slick way to make it happen. But this is kind of we are the first people who try to do this with that technology that we just invented, so it's going to be painful, and maybe it won't work like that.
Yeah, it's certainly going to not be here and there. It's really going to be cumbersome, hopefully, how it works, because something needs to be prepared beforehand where you see then, or like you said, some magic thing that we somehow recognize the situations of stroke overlapping and sort of keep the skeletons together. But of course, if you do it automatically, you're going to be working against some other people's intentions who want to have it separated. But maybe at the end we have to say, better start with a thin font. It always works better.
Yeah, but most of those line joinings, you don't want to have them to join at the center line. You want to join them at the outline. So if you look, can you maybe picture like a standard Latin R or N, where you have that stem and you have coming out that bow thing, like, and that thing is not joining somewhere near the center line, it's joining the outline. So this is coming down, and it's with the inner, probably inner edge, it's joining at the right edge of the stem. So this is not the skeleton. This is the outline. So you can start with a very thin font, and then it's probably maybe the same as joining the center lines, and it looks good. But when you make it bold, it will just go relatively uninspired into that stem without a nice transformation into. So what you want to do is really to like put it on the edge, I think.
I must
For
also,
example, but this is on the other side. This is actually a decision a designer would have to make at some point. Maybe your font is very has some kind of language that makes it work another way. Like maybe your joinings are just very hard punching into the stems, and then
you're very right with that observation. All of this is a personal design decision of the person, user on the spot. Second of all, we should not forget that we know the maximum we can offer. The maximum is a system where people prepare the fonts, they do some tasks that Metapolator is good at, like making all the strokes bolder or thinner, equally bolder and thinner. It's this mass, 1,000 glyphs at the same time, just do it kind of a thing. Then getting the UFO out and putting again in a font editor to do the detailing. Later we will have a UI to do all the detailing on point level, but right now we don't even have that. The workflow, this must be also communicated what we promise. Right now it's good for almost batch jobs of doing the whole font, chung, chung, higher, stretching it, stretching the skeleton, which is a good way to narrow wide a font. But you probably have to go to quite a few glyphs, not all of them, to rejoin them, to construct the joints as it fits this newer width or this newer weight that you actually have. We're not perfect, but some tasks, and it's just some tasks of font making, can now be done on do it for the whole master or make a family. We can construct families, and it needs still a lot of work afterwards, handwork, but it goes a lot faster than before. We're showing a promise of, and I think some people, not all of them, but some font designers will already be like, well, for that task, I now put it in Metapolator, and that will be winning. So it's expectations from us, expectations management for users, like what we communicate. We must be really clear on the web page what you can do now usefully with Metapolator and the rest not. Preparation beforehand, touching up afterwards, UFO workflow. If we don't communicate it, we have already lost. People are going to expect that everything goes fine, and it can't. We know that. I'm also now again very, thank you for making it really clear where the limitations are, because we must constantly also keep that in mind. So yes, it's useful to keep repeating. Don't expect miracles. And the joining of the strokes. I designed before how to join these things with offset and center or the left or right on curve point, etc. And yeah, it's a lot of combinations that can happen with offsets in 2 dimensions, X and Y. At the end, it's 18 combinations or something that can be done, plus a variable offset. So okay, actually, it's about 81 combinations, I think, 9 times 7. So, but it's good to talk through. It's also good to be aware what goes on in Metapolator and what we simply have to say. The rest you have to still do by hand. Keep tuning, we're working on it. Support us for making this tool complete.
So one big task we don't have on the list is designing those CPS transformations for those parameters. It's definitely not done when the panel is ready. We need to have the logic somewhere.
Yeah, and there I wanted to say, you're really right about saying who's going to do that. I think between it's not all going to be like, oh, Lasse does it.
Actually, I'd like to do it, but I don't know if I have the time to do it right now.
But do you think Simon could also really help with that? At least with how the rules should be? Because then also Jeroen could be involved in writing that.
Probably, maybe we can join, or maybe we can just have some. Actually, this would be a very nice session for I think for to make it publicly as a hangout, because it would be like I could explain to maybe Simon and Jeroen or whatever what we want to do with the CPS and stuff, and maybe someone thinks it's interesting. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it would be a CPS masterclass, and I think you're right.
Something
if it
like
comes
that,
with the explanation, and then you go to our real rules, not even example. You sit down with them and do the real rules, and they ask the questions because they need to know the essential things. Then it is an excellent masterclass.
And in the end of the day, if someone asks, so what is this? What's happening in your demo? We can say, oh, see, for every parameter we have one hangout session, and you can just watch it up how we made it, like that. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that will be. It's a very nice open source way of dealing with it. Plus, the work gets done and the knowledge gets shared. So I think that's very good. Just a matter of in the next weeks of sit down and do it. But yeah, so I think we can also say in general, it's not just wiring up the API, but also writing the CPS to make parameters work. It is part of the package.
Yeah, that's kind of the trick that though we did not that I did not actually build a hardwired thing of font math. I just built a interpreter for font math. So we have to write this logic for it.
The good thing is that I feel that maybe some of the parameters at this moment will be a little bit, let's call it, hacked in CPS, because there may be a generalization of a more complex topic, because there's only one parameter instead of 3 or something. But the good thing is that it can be hacked now and it can be refined into standardized CPS later.
It's okay to hack it.
For the demo, okay, that's good. We just
no problem.
Just make it work.
So one fun thing is, of course, to try to make like 8 meaningful things in one model. We will see how it works. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fully expecting that 1 or 2 will fall off, or even more, just because of practicalities. It was just my maximum shot of what I think is useful, especially also from a font designer side, mixed with what I know about the technology. And the fact that most subglyph point parameters, no, we cannot move around the coordinates of the points, because we work at a glyph or master level, basically. That's a huge limitation, but it makes the project possible at this moment.
Yeah. Also, it's perfect explanation why you can't dig into details and solve those problems there. Which are wrong.
Good. Then this was again a very good synchronization conversation we had here. And but I think, Dave, that's it for today, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely kind of food for thought for you. And the parameters panel and the export panel, I think that's kind of 2 big chunks.
I will design the parameters panel today. I will just start right after this call. Now I got the time to do it, basically. I got the opportunity, and it's pressing, so I sit down and get started. Probably need some feedback and etc. So it's going to take a bit of time to get mature, but Jeroen's got plenty to do. So
yeah, okay, and I'll try and schedule another one of these thinking hangouts for maybe sort of Wednesday or Wednesday next week, because I'm doing some conferences and stuff. So Wednesday next week would be good.
Can I ask maybe Lasse to put on the G+ community exactly this ID for CPS masterclass, hangout, etc. to see how to gauge just the enthusiasm. Today we've talked about this and that. The CPS rules need to be written, and we think it would be great if we actually do this in public sessions. What do you think? And then we see how the response is. So just also for a reminder for ourselves, and that Simon and Jeroen are also, I wouldn't name them in it, are aware that this job is coming. So, and with that, I'm ready to start design.
All right, good.
All right. Well, thanks for making the time for the call, and yeah, let's do another one soon.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Speak to you later.
Yeah. Thank you.